A number of megachurches in California and other states are openly defying state and local mandates and holding crowded indoor services despite the threat of the coronavirus. For the past couple Sundays, Pastor John MacArthur has welcomed congregants to Grace Community Church in Los Angeles County. That's even though California's governor has ordered indoor operations at places of worship closed to the public in the state's most populous counties. And that includes Los Angeles County as virus cases and deaths continue to climb there. Grace Community Church could face a $1,000 fine a day, and its leadership reportedly has retained one of President Trump's personal lawyers as part of a litigation team in case the county responds with legal action. On the final Sunday of July, Pastor MacArthur told his congregants that there is a time to obey law, but that obedience cannot override one's duty to God.
We must obey God rather than men. Does this mean we have no responsibility to our leaders? Not at all. God has ordained human government for the peace and well-being of temporal society. When orders come, however, to us that contradict the orders of our King, we have to obey God rather than men.
Pastor John MacArthur is joining us now. Pastor, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Brianna. Glad to be here.
And I know that you have been concerned that spiritual health is being sacrificed to physical health. Can you tell us about your concern?
Well, just one way to illustrate that, Brianna, is the fact that every Sunday in the life of this church for decades, we have had 4.5 hours every Sunday of training of children, 3 hours in the morning, an hour and a half in the evening. For 6 months, we've had no classes for children. We teach them the Bible. It's very, very critical for their young lives. The parents miss that. The children miss that. Maybe they're the most precious reality in this church. This church is not sort of a TED Talk kind of church. It's not really just a gathering of adults. It's a fully generational, multi-generational experience all through the week and culminates on the Lord's Day. So all of that has been shut down. When it first happened, we thought, well, we heard millions are going to die, so obviously we did live stream and nobody was here. But as the weeks went on, people started slowly coming back, and they just kept coming and coming until last week there were 6,000 or 7,000. That's 2 weeks in a row. It isn't that we mandated it. It isn't that we told them to come back. They started coming back, and what caused them to come back was they realized that the death rate in California is 0.02%, 99.98% chance you're not going to die from COVID. They didn't buy the deadly narrative, and they just started showing up, and we began to receive them, and they were told they couldn't sing. They were told they had to wear masks. We were told that if anybody gets within some other person, you can meet outdoors, but if anybody gets within another person within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, they have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. Well, how do you navigate that with 6,000 people? So if you get within someone who is tested positive, you mean? No. If you get within someone other than a family member, if you get within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, the health department said you have to be quarantined for 2 weeks, and they said it applies to children.
I think that means if you're near someone who has tested positive, that's been a somewhat standard approach to people who test positive for coronavirus. But I do want to highlight something that you recently said during a sermon. You were talking about some of the statistics that you actually just mentioned. If we can listen to that.
But there's another statistic. Half of those people who died are over 80. So if you're under 80, you have a 99.99% chance that you're going to live through this whole thing. That just does not equate to the response this society has had.
But if you just look at Friday's statistics in your county, in Los Angeles County, there were 48 deaths just in one day on Friday. And there were a little less than a third who were folks above 80, but a little less than a third were people 65 to 79, and more than a third were people aged 30 to 64. Does that raise your level of concern, knowing that actually it is not just the elderly at risk, as you're telling your congregants?
Yeah, to be honest with you, Brianna, I just don't know when the truth is being correctly represented. I know there are people counted
if I may,
with
Pastor,
COVID.
if I may, that's from the Public Health Department in Los Angeles. You doubt the numbers they're putting out?
Yeah, I actually do. I think they're having trouble in the state of California. The governor just declared that he was firing the state health director because the system, the computer system, had miscounted all kinds of things. So the whole state is in an uproar. And then he came out and said, we obviously can't ease up because we don't even know what the numbers are. So it's so chaotic. But the bottom line is, in people's own life experience, they're not seeing these kinds of things in any abnormal sense. And they came back on their own volition because this is the most essential thing in their life. They wanted to be here. They came with joy and not with fear.
No doubt. Look, I mean, we've heard a lot of people they need that spiritual attachment, and going to church is so important. One of my questions for you is this really an either or choice between spiritual and physical health? I mean, is it possible, for instance, I think your overflow area is outside. Can you not get creative? We've heard of other churches there very close to you who are doing outside services. They have cooling systems. They're checking temperatures. They're social distancing. They have masks, which, to be clear, when we look inside of your church, it is indoors. As you said, there's thousands of people. There is absolutely no social distancing. There is no masks. Why not get creative so that you can obey, as you've put it, God's law, but also obey public health regulations?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So we have been creative. We brought in a tent, put it in the parking lot, and first Sunday we had that. It just filled up and overflowed. So then we created a screen out in the middle of a large patio. That overflowed and filled up, and people just kept coming and pouring into the worship center. We don't orchestrate this. This is a church. We don't ask people to make a reservation to come to church. We don't know who's coming.
But you opened
that's
the
why
doors,
I said last.
sir.
Well, yeah, because we aren't going to have the people standing outside in a mob, all pushed up against each other. We opened the doors because that's what we are. We're a church, and we're going to trust those people to make adult decisions about the reality of their physical and spiritual health and how that balance works for each one of them. Nobody's forcing anything. They're here because they want to be here.
And I hear you on that, but they look to you, they trust you, you are their pastor, you are a religious leader for so many thousands of people. Do you worry that if people are coming into your church and they are not practicing what are considered just safe precautions, mask wearing, social distancing, that some of them could die or get sick?
Well, in the first place, I can't express to them a worry. There's enough fear going on in this world and in this climate. There is some reason for normal avoidance of illness. That would be true in any time in any year. But I'm not going to add to the fear, because I'm not convinced that what is being propagated is actually reality. Neither are they. That's why they're here. And I don't know of anybody in our church, and that's a large church, who's sick at this time. I don't know of anybody. We haven't had anybody in our church in the hospital with this through all these months. So of course we care about that. I know people in the hospital. I can't even go to the hospital to minister to them when they're dying, and I have to talk with people who are on their deathbed in a phone call because I can't get into the hospital to minister to them. So our people know life is being restricted in a way that is not constitutional, that is burdensome, that is targeting a church, and that makes no sense in light of the actual numbers of deaths that they're seeing.
I would just implore you, sir, that some people can be asymptomatic, and also to look at those numbers. I mean, the understanding is that they're underreported. I think that is something that you can take to the bank as you make decisions for that affect thousands of people.
Well, the bottom line, Brianna, is I don't make that decision. That's their decision to make. And they make that decision because that's the decision they want to make in their hearts. And I'm good with that. That's for them to decide.
All right, Pastor, we wish you luck. We wish you health and safety. Thank you so much, Pastor.
My pleasure. Thank you.